pretty passionate and bold person, sometimes for good and sometimes for bad. But then, so I was, most of my activism for the first 5 years being vegan was just polite conversations and sometimes heated debates. Though I probably wasn't that great at debating back then, but I was learning it. I was going through the steps of figuring out how to debate. And
Well, yeah, and you're like forced to defend yourself immediately.
yeah,
As soon as you tell people, "Hey, I'm gonna go vegan," people are like, "Well, why? Well, what about the?" And it's like, dude, I'm just trying to immediately, like, you have to be a black belt. I can't think of anything else like that
yeah,
where if you started to say, you know what, I think I'm going to start studying philosophy, and someone's like, well, what do you think about
yeah.
what
Just
do you think about
quickly.
Rawlsian Veil of Ignorance? I don't know. I haven't read that shit yet.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I think it's great that we've got activists like Earthling Ed and Joey Carbstrong who are making great content that explain a lot of these debates and different resources that we have. Every argument against veganism and all that stuff.
Totally.
But
But
as
you
far yeah, to finish my answer to your question of
yeah.
how did I get involved with protesting, uh, I guess the first protest I went to was a small circus protest in Albuquerque, and I felt pretty out of place. I didn't know what to do, and
How'd you
I
find
felt,
them?
yeah, I felt uncomfortable and hated by the people we were protesting. Because I mean we were protesting against the circus, but it's like if the families keep walking in, then they feel like we're protesting against them, and we kind of are.
Yeah,
Because
you're
it's like
ruining their night. Well,
yeah,
they paid their hard-earned money to go to the circus, right?
yeah.
Well, how did you find the activists though?
Um, I I think I probably through Facebook. I found like vegan groups on Facebook in my area, and that kind of thing. There wasn't any. There was only one group, and it was really small, and they weren't really doing activism. It was just a food potluck kind of thing, and some of them were
Mm-hmm.
vegetarians, and most of them were like in their 50s or 60s and stuff. But it was still cool, and I gave a speech for them, and they were really nice. Um, but what happened was I saw a video online of, because I was doing diligent searches all the time about speeches, animal rights lectures, and anything of the sort. And because back then there was no protests, there was no outreach like Anonymous for the Voiceless or anything. There was nobody doing nothing.
Yeah.
Except for Gary Yourofsky giving his crazy speech, which was
Yeah.
awesome. And really he empowered me as well. Um,
Yeah.
but but then I saw a video from Direct Action Everywhere, DXE, and that of them protesting inside of a restaurant, and it was actually like a compilation video, and it was a music video, so it had, it's very entertaining and inspiring, and
Yeah.
so I started showing that to my vegan friend, and he didn't like it. He was like, "No, that's crazy. You don't do that." And I was like, "I don't know, though, bro.
I don't know. I'm getting
It's really cool." And
just
and
getting
so
my
then I
blood going.
and then I when I moved to California a year later, that was the first thing I did was connect with the activists from DXC, and I actually kind of like quizzed them, like I kind of put them to the test about like convince me that protesting is actually a good thing, like and
Uh-huh.
specifically protesting inside of a restaurant or grocery store because you're pissing off a lot of people, right? Like
Yeah.
and it took.
Especially restaurants. That's like they've done lots. That's people are real pissed when you do it at a
Yeah,
restaurant.
yeah, and
They
it took a couple days for the activists to convince me, but then they had me. Yeah, they explained a lot of the sociological research and the social psychology and the historical precedent of other social justice movements like the civil rights and women's rights and gay rights and anti-war movement, and so it's just another one of those great tactics that sometimes you gotta be confrontational to create an uproar. Even if you're like upsetting people, they're going to go out and talk about it. And they're going to say, you should have seen these crazy vegans came into the restaurant while I was eating, but talking about killing animals and all this, you never know, the person they're talking to might be like, well, I don't know, bro, because I saw a slaughterhouse video on YouTube today and it was terrible. I mean, maybe the vegans are right, You know what
Also,
is
they'll tell that story for the rest of their lives. That's the
yeah,
craziest thing that ever happened to them in a restaurant. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like, I worked in restaurants and in hospitality for almost 20 years. Or no, for longer, like 25 years. And 28 years, something stupid. And I, all the time, restaurants and hospitality. And let me tell you, crazy shit goes down all the time. But when people experience that, that's the craziest thing that ever happened to them in a restaurant.
yeah,
And
yeah.
they talk about it for the rest of their lives.
And you know, one time, like I have a video on my YouTube called "Vegans Get High Fives from Rage Against the Machine During a Protest in a Steakhouse," right? Because like Tom Morello, the lead guitarist of Rage Against the Machine, was in there with his family while we were disrupting the steakhouse, and they applauded us. His wife gave us a standing ovation, and then he gave us all high fives on the way out. It was crazy, and we've got it on camera, you know.
What was he eating that night?
I know, right? But I think he made a post on social media on Instagram afterwards because he took a picture of us while we were doing it, and he said, you know, these animal rights activists came in and protested, and I support, you know, my whole family supports. We were in here for, you know, his mother's 90th birthday and that kind of thing, and who knows what he eats, you know, but he at least appreciates the social justice aspect of it.
Yeah, a lot of people pro-activist. That's kind of how I
Yeah,
usually. I'm pro-activist, you know. Like, I'll get out there and start making some noise. I'm sick of everyone walking around like robots. I don't. I'm sick of people. I want to celebrate critical thinking. I want to celebrate individuality and people get and standing up for what's right or what they believe is right. You know, get
yeah,
up, go.
yeah, and especially if there's, you know, truth behind their message.